Anyway, but as far as Elijah Holyfield with running backs, not really considered in the top 10 at all, expected to go. Even the surprise after the Sugar Bowl where he declared that he was going. Where do you think for him what this does? Biggest thing, any chance for this to prove him lining up against other running backs, though?
If his 40 time is surprisingly good, this could really push him up the board, I think, to maybe even day 2 consideration. Yeah. So we'll see. I think, he's got at surface level, people are like, oh, this guy's a power back. Maybe not so fast. He looked fast to me this last year. So I'm curious to see what he runs in the 40. Because, that could really boost the stock because NFL scouts are like, oh, man, this guy is 0.05 seconds faster than this other guy. He's got to go 3 rounds higher.
They get the
NFL is dumb, but that's just how it works.
It's the itch for the analytics, man.
Yeah. 0.05 seconds. But then we're going to put pads on them, and they're whatever. I don't know.
He's been training in the Bahamas. Do you think that'll help him?
I don't know what the Bahamas is supposed to do.
He's going to be inside in Indianapolis.
Anything, yeah, I was about to say, if you train like Odell on the beach or something like that, or like everyone else, it's better than the weather in Athens at the moment. Well, or this past week up until this point. So, but as far as seniors, when we were talking about DeAndre Walker, Jonathan Ledbetter, Terry Godwin, and Lamont Gaylord, who are
Baker too.
Obviously, but DeAndre Baker being the biggest one that we're presuming and expected to be a first-round pick. Out of all these other guys going forward, senior-wise, who are we looking for, and where do you think they're lining up when it comes to the draft upcoming in April?
I'm looking at Jonathan Ledbetter. I think he slept on. This guy was second-team All-SEC last year. He's disruptive. I think he could be a really good rotational defensive lineman in the NFL. You need 5-6 defensive linemen you can rotate in today. Got to pressure the quarterback. Got to keep fresh bodies. I think he can be a really valuable piece. I wouldn't be surprised if he improved his stock to the point where he goes in the late second or third round. I think he produced better than he was given credit for. I think people pointed at the Georgia defensive line a lot this last year and said this is maybe the weak link of the defense, just that there weren't any major names on there. But Ledbetter was a good player for several years. A guy who really changed the narrative on his career after some arrests early in his time at Georgia. Many thought he should have been dismissed. He turned himself around and turned himself into a really good football player. I always enjoyed talking to him. He came across as really bright, and
style too.
Nice style with the glasses. I think he can be a really good NFL player, and I don't think anyone's talking about him.
Was there any chance, Colin, that you'd switch your glasses up to match him?
I couldn't pull those off, man.
You don't think so?
No.
It just works. It works for him. So, but as far as with DeAndre Walker,
that's what I was going to
get. Yeah. For you, Michael.
Looking at the NFL, he talked about defensive line. These NFL teams, a lot of them are always looking for a solid edge rusher because that can change the game. You've seen it before, Von Miller, those type. But DeAndre Walker is the guy that got banged up towards the end of the year, so that might hurt his draft stock a little bit. But if he was healthy, all these draft experts seem to believe that he could have been a second-round pick or something like that. But he might not get picked that high because of the recent injury. But I think he's a talented enough player to make some noise. I think he led the team in sacks this past year. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's true. He was one of my favorite people to talk to, especially post-game. I think my favorite memory was after the Georgia Tech game, talking to him. And
is he just super pumped up, or
he's it feels so good to knowing that you can beat the
he's not afraid to throw an expletive around.
So it was he's a good guy. He's a really good football player. Another one that will probably not get drafted, might not even get drafted. He might get drafted really late, but Lamont Gaillard, you're always looking for a solid center. You look at Georgia's produced some solid centers over the past years and things like that.
Even with David Andrews,
right? But Galliard's a guy that
was he?
No.
Yeah, it was.
But Galliard's a guy that was kind of undersized when he came in, but then had probably one of the most productive careers for offensive lineman.
Started as a defensive lineman too.
Yeah, he's a Bill Belichick.
He's a versatile
dream.
player.
He is.
He's a Bill Belichick dream right there. Well, we got Pro Day coming up though in March, following the Combine as well. I don't want to leak into that too much because we'll be able to have some coverage of that there. But as far as it going forward now with Pro Day and also all this culminating and growing. What are your thoughts on DeAndre Baker? Where do you think he lands? Still guaranteed top first round. I think that's a general consensus by everyone, but top 15, ranking where the team's needed. Any chance he goes to the Falcons?
Maybe. I think he'll land somewhere in the 9 to 12 range in terms of picks. But my biggest thing that I want to know is how big of an impact will he make immediately? You saw that Roquan Smith was able to come in for the Bears and got paired up with Khalil Mack and some other good pieces there in Chicago, but became part of one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL this past season. With Baker, his position might be a little more difficult, but I want to know how he's going to stack up to those NFL receivers right out of the gate. If there's going to be a learning curve, that development period, or will he be able to be like a Jalen Ramsey type where he can come in and essentially, shut down to the best of his ability a wide receiver. I don't think Baker's going to talk nearly as much trash, go out and dish on all the quarterbacks in the league, but I want to know if he'll have that immediate impact and if he'll be a big part of the defense right out of the gates.
Well, I expect Baker to go late teens, early 20s. I think he'll fall a little bit because the NFL is obsessed with these big corners like Jalen Ramsey. People are salivating at Greedy Williams. If Greedy Williams were 5'11" like DeAndre Baker, DeAndre Baker would be considered the better prospect. Yeah. Baker, I think, is a guy that can start day one, but we've seen some of these. DeAndre Baker's not small for a corner, but he's not big. We've seen guys like that maybe struggle a little bit. Vernon Hargreaves at Florida was a great player, and he's been really shaking the NFL for Tampa. So I think people might be scared off by the height a little bit, and I could see him falling a little, whether that's really warranted or not.